understanding light with the eyes of a painter. A really important thing about painting is being able to separate the light from the shadow. Light and how it falls on forms. Forms are just, whatever object that we're going to be painting. It's important to just have the same vocabulary so that if I say reflected light, you know what that is. And if I say center light or form light, so it makes the communication easier, but it also helps you understand it so that when you're looking at an object, because if you have that knowledge to back up what you're seeing, sometimes that really helps. It's like understanding where the bony parts of the skeleton is. It's like if you know a little bit more about anatomy, it may not be exactly clear from your reference. So this is almost like knowing anatomy for light. Okay, so we have form light, which is everything that's that whole half of the sphere that's in the light. And then we have the center light, which is kind of the lightest area of the light. It kind of tells you where the direction of the light is coming from. The highlight, you couldn't see in this reference really super well, but when I kind of played with it on Photoshop, I got the idea that there was kind of a highlight right there. And then the dark light is the part of the form that is falling away from the light. And so it's still in the light, but a little bit darker than the rest of the light. Okay, so now we're going on to parts in the shadow. So there's the terminator or the core shadow. And the arrow is pointing at this one little spot that's dark. I hope you all can see that. It runs around the form and it sort of disappears on the far left in the shadow. But you can definitely see it. And it's called the terminator because that's where the light terminates and the reflected light terminates. So that one little strip of shadow there is not catching any light and it's not catching any of that bounce light that comes off the table surface or the surface that the sphere is sitting on. If you're ever confused about the shape of an object, you can look for that terminator. I'll find it when I'm painting still life objects. I'll find it when I'm, anywhere, and it helps you understand the shape of it. So then the form shadow is just like the light form. It's like this half of the sphere on the right. So everything that's labeled right now, you consider and absolutely is shadow, which is why I separated them like this, because it's very important to have your shadow identified separate than your light. So the form shadow is just the whole area on the right. And then we move on to reflected light. This is bounced light that comes from, the table surface or whatever this sphere is sitting on. And it's light that is bouncing up there and it's filling that form shadow with a little bit of light. The important thing to remember about reflected light is it's never going to be as light as anything in the light area. And we're going to talk about that some more to kind of reinforce that. Then you have the cast shadow. We make the distinction between a form shadow and a cast shadow. Everybody knows what a cast shadow is, right? It's the light where the light is being blocked because of your form. It's important to kind of think about, is this a form shadow? It's a shadow that's on the ball or whatever it is you're painting, or is the ball casting the shadow? Is your form casting the shadow? And this is what's really going to tell you the direction of the light. You can tell by where this cast shadow is, the light is up and to the left of the sphere. And so that's why we're getting this cast shadow. And it's a little bit back too, because we're getting a little bit of the cast shadow in the front. Most of it's, off on the right. And this is why if you don't get your cast shadows right, it will make your forms not look right, because we instinctually know what a cast shadow is supposed to look like. The other thing is the cast shadow tells us a lot about, the time of day, or, it's just there's a whole lot of information in there. So that's why, getting these things accurate is important. The penumbra is the edge of the cast shadow there. It's like a second or sometimes even a little third ring of shadow, and it will be fainter than the cast shadow, but it's important to get it in there Sometimes I will really search for it, even if I don't see it clearly, because that will keep you from making your cast shadow have too hard of an edge. Because if you paint this little bit of a penumbra, automatically it's softened, right? And then the last one is this occlusion shadow, which is directly under it. And it's called an occlusion shadow or a dark accent. And all that means is that the light is occluded, means that's where no light is getting, and there's not any bounce light up in there. There's not any reflected light. So it's basically just a dark accent. Here's that concept, and I thought I would write it down almost like a PowerPoint, because some people are, see things, read things, and they can remember it better. And some people just like to hear it. So every dark value in the shadow should be darker than every dark value in the light. If you make your reflected light too light, it will pop it forward, and we will think that it's in the light. And so it messes up the shape, and it makes your painting jarring. So you need to almost compress those values in the shadows and make sure that you're not painting the reflected light too light. So if we say it a little bit different way, it's every dark in the light is going to be lighter than that light in the dark.